Jade Harper, 31 years old, and I just touched down in Boise after finalizing the biggest deal of my career in London. The second the plane's wheels made contact with the runway, my phone vibrated with an email from Idaho First Bank. Your property at 1427 Maple Lane has been mortgaged for $280,000. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. I drove straight to my parents' house in the suburbs. The kitchen light was on, and there they were, waiting as if it had been planned. My mother looked up first. "Jace needs the house more than you do." My brother leaned back in his chair with that self-satisfied grin. "Come on, sis, don't be so selfish." I didn't say a word. I just stood there, taking it all in because what I was about to say would stun everyone in the room. Before I dropped the exact few sentences that left everyone speechless, smash that like button, subscribe right now, and comment below with your city so we can track how far this story spreads. That house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the only thing I ever owned outright. 7 years of 5 a.m. alarms in London. 80-hour weeks closing deals across multiple time zones. Dinner was swallowed cold over glowing spreadsheets while the rain hammered against the window. I wired the final payment from a hotel room in Singapore. No co-signers, no loan, just my name on the deed. Cash done. A 3-bedroom ranch on the edge of Boise with a backyard big enough for peace and quiet. I was 24 when I signed the papers. Jace turned 16 that summer. His birthday party blew up the backyard. Smoke from the grill, music thumping, 20 kids screaming over a volleyball net. I pulled a double shift at the pizza parlor, flour tucked in my hair, grease smudged on my apron, counting tips to cover textbooks. I came home at midnight to streamers still taped to the fence and a single leftover rib in the fridge. No one had saved me a slice of cake. College graduation was quieter. Black gown, empty seats on both sides of the aisle. I texted a photo to the family group chat. Mom replied, "Jace has a fever, staying home." The fever lasted exactly 1 day, the day of the ceremony. I walked across the stage alone, diploma in one hand, phone dark in the other. Christmas came every year like clockwork. Jace unwrapped Dad's old Ford pickup at 17, keys dangling from a red bow. I got a sweater 2 sizes too big, sleeves past my fingertips, tags still attached like an afterthought. I wore it once and then folded it into a box marked "Donate." The house sat empty while I chased promotions overseas. I paid a gardener to mow the lawn and a cleaner to dust the shelves. Every video call, I'd angle the camera toward the fireplace as proof I'd built something solid. Jace would wave from the couch in our parents' living room, feet on the coffee table, asking when I'd finally come home for good. I flew in twice a year and left the key under the mat like a fool. I told myself blood meant trust. I told myself the late-night transfers for Jace's car insurance or Jace's community college fees were temporary. I told myself the house was safe because it was mine. It was the only place I pictured retiring. A porch swing, coffee at sunrise. No more red-eye flights, no more eating alone. Just roots I'd paid for in overtime and sleepless nights. But roots rot when someone else digs them up. Hours later, sleep wouldn't come. I just couldn't sleep that night. The guest bed creaked with every shift. The walls were too thin, and the air was too thick with old arguments. At 1:47 a.m., I gave up, slipped on jeans, and grabbed the spare key still hidden in the fake rock by the porch. The lock clicked like it remembered me. I eased the door shut behind me, barefoot on the cold tile, my heart already racing. Dad's study was at the end of the hall, door ajar. Moonlight striped the carpet through the half-closed blinds. I knew the layout by muscle memory. Left past the bathroom, right at the family photo I was cropped from. The desk sat under the window, oak-scarred from years of Jace's homework and Dad's coffee rings. Bottom drawer, right side, always unlocked. Always. I pulled it open slowly. Manila folders, tax returns, a half-empty bottle of bourbon, and then the bank envelope. Thick, official Idaho First Bank logo glaring in black and gold. I slid the papers free. Mortgage agreement, $280,000. Property address mine, borrower Jade Harper. Signature line, my name in blue ink loops. 2 tight crosses on the T's slanted wrong. Forged. Sloppy. Obvious. I flipped to the ID page, a photocopy of my passport, renewed last March in London. The copy was grainy, edges cut off, but the photo was mine. The number matched. They'd scanned it from the file I left in the safe when I flew out for Christmas. I trusted them with the combination. Trusted wrong. Phone out. Flash off. I photographed every page, front and back, the notary stamp, the fine print. 23 shots. I zoomed in on the signature until the pixels blurred. I compared it to the real one on my driver's license, pulled from my wallet. The difference screamed. My real loops flow. This one jerked like a child tracing. I kept digging. Under the mortgage folder was a second envelope. A loan application. Co-signers Yale and Uma Harper. Income verification. Dad's pension stubs. Mom's part-time payroll from the library. Purpose of loan. Business startup, Jace Harper Enterprises. Attached business plan. Hand-scrawled napkin sketch of an online store. Revenue projections in crayon red marker. $280,000 to launch handmade crafts globally. No collateral listed except my house. My pulse hammered in my ears. I folded the originals back exactly as found and slid the drawer shut without a sound. I backed out of the study, phone clutched to my chest. In the hallway, I paused at Jason's door. Light off, snoring steady. He slept like nothing burned. I returned to the guest room and locked the door. I sat on the floor with my back against it, opened the photos, enhanced the signature, sent copies to my cloud, and then to a secure email only I could access. I deleted the gallery, cleared the cache, and set the phone to airplane mode. The forgery wasn't even clever. The bank had to know, or they didn't care. Either way, tomorrow they would. By dawn, I had a plan. The next morning, I walked into Idaho First Bank in the charcoal suit I wore for boardrooms, heels clicking on the marble floor like gunfire. No appointment. I gave the teller my name, flashed the deed printout, and demanded the loan manager. 5 minutes later, a security guard escorted me past the velvet ropes to a glass office in the back. Mr. Wu stood when I entered, mid-50s, wire rim glasses. Tie too tight. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. I stayed standing and dropped my leather folio like a gauntlet. Inside was my original passport, driver's license, the forged mortgage packet I'd photographed, plus a fresh signature sample I'd inked on bank letterhead in the lobby. "Explain this," I said, sliding the forgery across the desk. He adjusted his glasses and flipped through the pages, his forehead creasing deeper with each sheet. The signature page made him pause the longest. He pulled a magnifying loupe from a drawer, held it over my forged name, and then over the sample I'd just written. His exhale fogged the glass. "This isn't your handwriting," he stated, not a question. "No." "And that," I tapped the photocopy ID, "isn't verified." "Grainy copy. No live scan. No in-person confirmation. Your compliance department skipped every red flag." Mr. Wu set the loupe down, finger steepled. "The loan funded 3 weeks ago, dispersed to a joint account under Yale and Uma Harper, with Jace Harper listed as business principal. I don't care where the money went. I care that my asset is collateral without my consent. Identity theft, mortgage fraud, federal crime." He glanced at the door and lowered his voice. "The board will want this contained. A lawsuit would tank our quarter." "Good. Contain it by giving me control. 7 calendar days, full repayment, principal, interest, fees. Wire it to an escrow account I designate. Miss the deadline, and I file in federal court and CC every regulator from here to DC." Mr. Wu opened a drawer, pulled out a legal pad, and started scribbling. "We'll need the original documents returned after repayment. You get clean copies. I keep the evidence until the wire clears." He nodded, tore off the top sheet, and slid it over. "Demand letter template, official bank letterhead, already dated. We'll draft the formal notice today. Foreclosure acceleration, if unpaid by day 7. Your property reverts to clear title upon satisfaction." I reviewed every line, initialed the margin, and said send it certified, return receipt, copy to my attorney, done. He stood and extended a hand. I didn't take it. "One more thing," I said at the door. "If anyone in this branch tips them off before the letter lands, I'll know. And your containment problem becomes a class action." His hand dropped. I left him pale behind the glass. That afternoon, I fired off a text. I texted him, "Coffee. The bean counter now." The bean counter occupied the corner of Ann Morrison Park, a narrow brick building with mismatched wooden tables and the perpetual scent of roasted beans. I arrived first, chose the back booth under the vintage Boise postcard wall, and ordered a medium drip, black. The barista, tattooed forearm name tag Riley, slid it over with a nod. I wrapped both hands around the ceramic mug and let the heat anchor me while I waited. Jay strolled in 31 minutes late, pushing the door with his shoulder like he owned the place. Hoodie, charcoal gray, premium brand, embroidered logo on the chest. The price tag had been snipped, but the plastic loop was still dangling from the hem. He carried a scratched MacBook under one arm and a venti iced something in the other, the straw already chewed flat. He scanned the room, spotted me, and lifted his chin in greeting. "Hey sis, parking's a nightmare." He dropped into the seat opposite me and set the laptop between us like a peace offering. "Brought the numbers, you're gonna love this." The screen woke with a tap. An Excel file dominated the display. Jace Harper Handcraft Empire, pro forma, columns stretched wide, formulas tangled. Revenue forecast, $1 million in year one from Etsy plus Shopify, plus custom TikTok drops. Breakdown, 50,000 learning units at $20. Average viral marketing assumed. Expense tab, $280,000 total. 100K inventory, beads, resin molds. 80K influencer partnerships. 50K warehouse lease. 15K, flagged in red, high-res 3D printer, critical for prototypes. Error messages littered the sheet. Circular references. Stuck value in profit row. Pivot table broken from copied cells. I scrolled down to the assumptions page. Market size pulled from a 2018 blog post. Competition listed as none, local. Cash burn, $23,000 monthly, negative. "This is what the bank funded?" I asked. Jace nodded and sipped his drink. "Exactly. They saw the vision. The house's collateral sealed it. But prototypes sell the dream. That printer lets me mock up resin phone cases in 24 hours. Investors eat that up." I highlighted the printer line. 15,000 for one machine, industrial grade, dual extruder, carbon fiber capable. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Look, just float me the 15. I'll flip the first batch, pay you back with interest. Family rate." I closed the lid. The snap echoed. "Not one more cent." His eyes widened. "You can't be serious. This is my shot." "Your shot torched my deed." I stood and slung my bag over my shoulder. 7 days start now. Fix it without me." I walked out, the doorbell jingling behind me. I didn't look back. Sunday arrived too fast. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. sharp. I didn't come alone. The oak table gleamed under the chandelier, the same one since childhood, scarred from hot dishes and spilled gravy. Roast chicken steamed in the center. Mashed potatoes were heaped high, and green beans glistened with butter. Mom, Uma, bustled from the kitchen to the dining room, apron tied tight, smile brittle. Dad, Yale, carved the bird with mechanical precision. Jay slouched in his usual chair, phone hidden under the table. I entered last, Cousin Abe on my left, 6'4", ex-cop, shoulders filling the doorway. Taylor on my right, best friend since sophomore year, now a corporate attorney, briefcase in hand. Abe wore his retired detective blazer. Taylor wore a crisp navy suit. The room temperature dropped 5 degrees. "Jade, you brought guests." Mom's voice pitched high, ladle hovering. "Family and council," I said, pulling out my chair. Abe sat beside me. Taylor sat opposite Jace. I reached into my folder and placed the mortgage packet square on the placemat, $280,000 in bold on top. The thud silenced the forks. Taylor opened her briefcase and extracted Idaho Code printouts. Section 45 VA 15 assists. She read aloud, her voice courtroom clear. Mortgage fraud. Civil penalties up to $500,000, plus treble damages and attorney fees. Criminal referral optional. Jace's face drained of color. "What the hell?" "Language," Dad muttered, knife paused mid-slice. I slid the signature page forward. "My name, not my hand. Photocopy ID. Bank confirmed forgery yesterday." Mom dropped into her seat. "Jade, honey, it was a loan. Temporary." "Temporarily stolen," Abe rumbled, arms crossed. I ran the prelim. "Bank's sending the acceleration notice tomorrow." Jace's eyes welled up. Tears spilled fast, shoulders shaking. "I just wanted to prove I could do it. Build something. You're always gone." Mom reached for him. He only wanted to show he's capable by stealing my house. I kept my voice level. 7 days, full repayment, principal, interest, fees. Wire to escrow. Miss it, we file Monday morning. Court garnishment liens. Taylor tapped the code again. Judge signs the order. Pensions attached. Day 1. Dad set the carving knife down. We'll sell what we can. Start now, I said. Clock's ticking. Jay sobbed louder. Mom pulled him close. Abe stared them down. Taylor packed her briefs. I stood. Dinner's getting cold, Mom whispered. I lost my appetite. I replied and walked out with my team. Monday brought the first email. Subject line, urgent, acceleration notice. Idaho First Bank letterhead. Body. Failure to cure default within 7 calendar days will result in foreclosure sale. My address centered in bold. I forwarded it to Taylor and then to the family group chat. No reply for 6 hours. Mom broke first. Tuesday morning, she drove to the pawn shop on Overland and slipped off the white gold wedding band Dad gave her in '89. The appraiser offered $2, $800 cash. She haggled to $3,000, walked out with an envelope of hundreds, eyes red but dry, and deposited it the same day into the joint account they had opened for business expenses. Dad followed Wednesday. He listed the '72 Chevy pickup on Facebook Marketplace. Original paint, 350 volts 8. 112K miles. The buyer showed up with a trailer and $6,000 in 20s. Dad signed the title on the tailgate, handed over the keys, and watched the truck disappear down the street. He texted me the sale receipt at 4:12 p.m., no comment. Jay spent Thursday boxing up his gaming rig, dual monitors, RGB keyboard, custom water-cooled PC, VR headset, every controller since PS2. He posted the bundle on local Discord for $800 firm. Sold in 43 minutes to a college kid who paid in Venmo. Jace transferred the funds immediately. Added a crying emoji in the group chat. Dad started night security Friday. Local warehouse, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 24-hour time and a half weekends. First paycheck stub, $400 gross. He scanned it and uploaded it to the chat at 7:03 a.m. Saturday. Still in uniform, I watched the balances climb in the escrow dashboard Taylor set up. Mom pawned $3,000, Dad truck plus $6,000, Jace plus $800, Dad week 1 $400 running total $10, $200. They kept going. Mom sold her mother's china on eBay, collar and $200 shipped. Dad pawned his high school class ring, $450. Jace flipped sneakers he'd hoarded $150. Dad picked up overtime Saturday night, another $240. By Sunday night, the dashboard read $92,000. Still $188,000 short. My London bonus hit Monday. Early release approved after I emailed HR, the family emergency clause $30,000 net. I stared at the deposit notification, thumb hovering. I transferred it to my personal savings instead. Let the chat know, not bridging the gap. Clock stopped Sunday. They saw the message, no response. Day 8 arrived. 2 weeks later, I stood in court. Boise County Civil Courthouse, 3rd floor, walnut-paneled room, smelling of polished wood and stale coffee. Taylor flanked me at the plaintiff's table. Tailored suit, tablet glowing with exhibits across the aisle. Mom, Dad, Jace in ill-fitting jackets. Public defender shuffling papers. The gallery held Cousin Abe, a court reporter, and empty seats. Judge Harlan Ellis entered, 60-ish, silver hair, gavel sharp. Harper versus Harper. Counsel, state appearances. Taylor Ree for plaintiff Jade Harper, she said. Public defender Elena Vasquez for defendants. Taylor launched first. Your Honor, we move for summary judgment on breach of trust and identity misuse under Idaho Code 45 and 1506, Exhibits A through F. Forged mortgage, photocopy passport, bank confirmation of fraud. Damages $280,000 in principal plus interest. She projected the signatures side by side, mine fluid, theirs jagged. The room gasped when the photocopy scanned appeared, time-stamped from Dad's study printer. Vasquez countered weakly. Defendants acted in good faith, family loan, no intent to defraud. Stealing a deed isn't a loan, Taylor shot back. It's theft. Judge Ellis reviewed the file, glasses perched low. Ms. Ree, remedy sought? Garnishment order 50% of defendants Yale and Uma Harper's pensions until full restitution. One earns $200 monthly effective immediately. Mom whimpered. Dad gripped the table. Motion granted. Judge Ellis ruled. Order entered. Escrow account established. Non-compliance contempt. Jace's turn came next. Vasquez filed Chapter 7, mid-hearing personal bankruptcy. Assets 0 after sales. Debts $280K plus cards. He's discharged. She pleaded. Approved, the judge nodded. But eviction notice stands. No lease eligibility with this filing. The gavel fell. Case closed. Outside, Mom lunged. Jade, please. I turned away. Taylor handed me the stamped order. 3 days later, I boarded the flight to New York. Promotion locked. Senior VP, Manhattan office. First stop, realtor on the Upper West Side. 2-bedroom co-op, Hudson Views. $1.2 million cash from my bonus and savings. Closing in 48 hours. Deed in my name only. No co-signers. I unpacked alone. Bookshelves first, then kitchen. Blocked every number. Sunday night. Mom's cell. Dad's work line, Jace's burner. Voicemails piled. We're sorry. Looped into. You're killing us. Deleted on red. 6 months passed. Pensions garnished $7, $200 total. Still $272, $800 owed. Jace couch surfed jobless. Mom took library shifts. Dad drove Uber. I walked Central Park Daily Coffee, steaming boundaries intact. Real family isn't blood. It's the people who respect your boundaries. I'm Jade Harper, and at 31 years of age, I had just arrived in Boise after successfully negotiating the most important agreement of my professional life while in London. Just as soon as the plane's landing gear made contact with the ground, I got an email on my phone coming from Idaho First Bank. In the email, it stated, "Your property located at 1427 Maple Lane has a mortgage secured on it for the amount of $280,000. I just stared at the display screen. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it. I immediately drove directly to my parents' residence, which was located in the suburbs. The light in the kitchen was on, and my parents were waiting for me inside like they had set it up. My mother was the first to look up. She said, "Jace is in more need of the house than you are." My brother then leaned back in his chair with that look of smug self-satisfaction on his face. He said, "Come on, sis. Don't be so selfish." I couldn't even say anything. I just stood in place, trying to take it all in because the statement I was about to make was going to silence the entire room. But before I tell you the sentences that left everyone completely frozen, make sure that you like this and subscribe right away, and then leave a comment in the space below and let me know what city you're in, so that we can see how far and wide this story goes. That house was not simply constructed of bricks and mortar. It represented the only thing that I had ever had complete and sole ownership of. For a period of 7 years, I had set my alarm to go off at 5 o'clock in the morning in London. I had worked 80 hours every week putting together deals that spanned many different time zones. I would have to wolf down my dinner cold while staring at glowing spreadsheets as the rain crashed against the window panes. While staying in a hotel located in Singapore, I wired the final payment. There was no loan and no co-signers involved. My name alone was listed on the title deed. It was a cash transaction. It involved a 3-bedroom ranch that was situated on the outskirts of Boise and possessed a backyard large enough to provide the peace and quiet I desired. I had reached the age of 24 when I completed the signing of the paperwork. Jace was going to be 16 during the summer of that year. On his birthday, we had a massive celebration in the backyard, complete with smoke coming from the grill, loud music being played, and around 20 young people shouting while playing volleyball. I was working a double shift at the neighborhood pizza restaurant, and my hair was adorned with a flower. I had grease on my apron, and I was counting my tips in order to have enough money to pay for books. I returned home close to midnight and still discovered streamers fastened to the fence and one single rib that had not been eaten. No one had bothered to save me a slice of the birthday cake. When it came time for my graduation from college, it was a much more subdued affair. I was wearing a black gown, and there were no people sitting in the chairs on either side of the aisle. I took a picture and sent it via text message to the group chat that my family used. Mom shot back with, "Jace has a fever, so he's going to stay home." The fever lasted for 1 day, the exact same day as the graduation event. As I accepted my diploma in one hand, while holding a phone that had gone dark in the other, I proceeded across the stage unaccompanied. As it always seemed to do, Christmas came around like clockwork every year. Jace unwrapped the old Ford pickup truck that used to be Dad's when he turned 17. He saw that the keys were hanging from a red bow. I was given a sweater that was too big for me by 2 sizes. The sleeves extended way past my fingers, and the tag was still attached, as if the sweater was an afterthought. I put it on once, and then I put it in a box labeled Donate. While I was overseas trying to get better work, the house was unoccupied. I hired a gardener to take care of the grass, and I had someone come in to clean the shelves. Every time I had a video chat, I would adjust the camera so that the fireplace was in the frame in order to show that I had created something solid. Jace would wave to me from the couch in our parents' family room. His feet would be on the table, and he would ask me when I was going to finally come home for good. I would fly in twice per year, and like a fool, I would leave the key under the doormat. I reasoned to myself that because we shared the same blood, I could put my trust in them. I reasoned to myself that the money that I was sending for Jace's auto insurance or for his classes at the community college was only going to be a temporary situation. I reasoned that the house was secure because it was my property. It was the only place in the world where I could imagine myself retiring. I could envision myself sitting on the porch swing, sipping coffee at sunrise, and not having to get on any more red-eye flights or eat alone. I could just relax and enjoy the roots that I had worked so hard to grow through hard work and countless sleepless nights. However, roots have a tendency to rot when another person comes along and digs them up. Sleep was not going to come easy that night, and for a few hours, it didn't. I was simply unable to get any sleep. Every time I shifted in the bed, the guest bed let out a groan. The walls were not thick enough, and the room was filled with the ghosts of past disagreements. At approximately 1:47 in the morning, I just gave up. I threw on a pair of jeans and grabbed the spare key, which I had left concealed beneath a phony rock that was close to the porch. It sounded as if the lock remembered me as it clicked open. I slowly closed the door behind me after stepping inside, my bare feet coming into contact with the cold tiles. My heart was beating faster than it ever had. At the conclusion of the hall was Dad's study, with the door partially open. The light of the moon shined through the semi-closed blinds, creating stripes of light on the floor. I had spent so much time in this room that I knew where everything was located automatically. For example, to get to the family photo album that had a picture of me that had been cut out, you had to go past the bathroom and then take a right turn. Under the window was the desk, and the oak wood was covered in markings from Jace's years of homework, and the coffee rings that Dad had left on it. The bottom drawer on the right side. It was always accessible to everyone, every single time. After taking my time, I pulled the drawer open. Inside were folders made of manila, copies of tax returns, and a bottle of bourbon that was only partially filled. Then, I discovered the envelope that came from the bank. The black and gold colors of the official logo of Idaho First Bank made it hard to look at. I slid the documentation out of the way. It was a mortgage agreement for $280,000. My address was listed as the address of the property. Jade Harper was listed as the borrower. The signature was in blue ink. The letter T had 2 tight crosses that were slanted in the wrong direction. It was very obviously forged and carelessly done. I turned to the page that contained identification information. It was a duplicate of my passport that had been renewed in London the previous March. Although the edges of the copy were cropped off and it was of poor quality, the photograph on the copy was indeed of me. Both numbers were the same. When I went out for Christmas, they got it from the file that I had left in the safe. I had given them the combination because I had faith in them. It turned out that I was incorrect in my trust. The flash on my phone was switched off, and I had it out in front of me. I snapped a picture of each and every page, both the front and the back, which included the notary stamp and the small print. I took 23 photographs in total. I zoomed in on the signature as much as I possibly could until the pixels became blurry. I compared it to the genuine signature that was on my driver's license, which I had taken from my wallet. The differences were glaringly obvious. My real loops have a natural flow to them. This one jerked like a child tracing. My investigation was not yet complete. Below the folder containing the mortgage was another envelope. Application for a loan. Yale and Uma Harper are listed as co-signers. Verification of earnings was provided. There were pay stubs from Dad's retirement, as well as Mom's paychecks from her part-time job at the library. The purpose of the loan was listed as the establishment of a new business, Jace Harper Enterprises. A drawing of an online store sketched on a napkin was connected as a business strategy. The sales predictions were written in red crayon. With $280,000, we will be able to introduce handcrafted goods to the world. With the exception of my property, there was no other collateral listed. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I carefully returned the originals to their original location and then closed the drawer without creating a single sound. I slowly stepped out of the study while keeping my phone close to my chest. I stopped at Jason's door as I was walking down the hallway. His light was turned off and his breathing was steady. It seemed as if he was sleeping without being concerned about anything at all. I went back to the guest room and locked the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, opened the photographs, improved the signature, and then sent copies to my cloud storage as well as to a secure email address that only I had access to. I cleared the cache on the device, removed the gallery, and put the phone in airplane mode. The forgery was not even done in a clever manner. Either the bank was aware of what was going on, or they just did not care. In any event, they would have to deal with the consequences of their actions the following day. By the time the sun rose, I had a strategy in place. The following morning, I walked into Idaho First Bank wearing the charcoal suit that I typically wore for meetings with the board of directors. The sound of my heels hitting the marble floor was similar to gunfire. I did not have a scheduled appointment. I provided the teller with my name, produced a printed copy of the deed, and requested to speak with the loan manager. A security guard took me beyond the velvet ropes and led me to a glass-enclosed office in the back 5 minutes later. When I came in, Mr. Wu stood up to welcome me. He was in his mid-50s, and he wore wire-rimmed spectacles and a tie that was knotted a little bit too tightly. He motioned in the direction of the chair that was located on the opposite side of his desk. I remained standing, and then I threw my leather briefcase down with a loud thump. I had included my original passport, my driver's license, and the forged mortgage paperwork that I had photographed. I also had a fresh copy of my signature that I had created on bank letterhead in the lobby. "Explain this," I commanded as I slid the forged document in front of him. After adjusting his eyeglasses, he turned the pages while his forehead creased even more with each one. He took the longest amount of time to read over the page that contained my signature. After taking a magnifying loupe out of a drawer, he placed it over the name that had been forged and then placed it over the signature that I had recently written. The glass became cloudy as he breathed out. He declared, "This is not your writing," and it was not phrased as a question. "No." In addition, that, quote, I said as I touched the photocopy, has not been authenticated. Copy that is grainy. There was no real-time scanning performed. There was no verification done in person. Your department in charge of compliance failed to notice every single warning indication. Mr. Wu set the loop down and then steepled his fingers. The loan was financed 3 weeks ago and deposited into a joint account held in the names of Yale and Uma Harper, with Jace Harper serving as the principal of the business. I am not interested in knowing where the money was sent. What concerns me is that without my permission, my asset has been used as collateral. Identity theft, mortgage fraud, and federal crimes. He looked in the direction of the door and then lowered his voice. The board is going to desire that this be contained. A legal action would be devastating to our quarter. Good. Take care of it by putting me in charge. Full repayment in 7 calendar days, including the principal, interest, and fees. Wire the funds to an escrow account that I designate. If you do not meet the deadline, I will file a complaint in federal court and copy every regulatory body from here to Washington, D.C. Mr. Wu opened a drawer, removed a legal pad, and started taking notes on it. After the reimbursement has been completed, we will need to get the original documents back. You are permitted to retain clean copies. I will keep the proof until the wire goes through. He nodded, tore off the sheet at the top, and slid it over in my direction. Template for a demand letter on official bank letterhead that is already dated. Today, we will compose the formal notice. The foreclosure will be accelerated if payment is not received by day 7. When the debt is paid off, the title to your property will be restored to you without any encumbrances. I went through each line carefully, initialed the margin, and said, "Send it in a certified letter with a return receipt requested, and send a copy to my lawyer." Done. He stood and offered his hand, but I declined to accept it. As I was leaving the room, I said, "There is one more thing. If anybody working at this branch alerts them before the letter arrives, I will be aware of it. And the challenge that you are having to contain the situation will escalate into a class action lawsuit." His hand went down, I left him behind the glass, looking quite pale. That afternoon, I sent a text message in a hurry. I sent him a text that read, "Coffee. The bean counter, right now." The bean counter was located on the corner of Ann Morrison Park, inside a narrow brick structure that featured wooden tables that did not match one another, and a never-ending aroma of roasted coffee beans. I got there first and chose the booth at the back of the restaurant, which was located beneath the wall that had vintage Boise postcards on it. I ordered a medium drip that was black. Riley, the barista, had a tattoo on his forearm and a name tag. He moved it over to me with a nod of his head. I held the ceramic mug in both of my hands. I was hoping that the heat would keep me from moving while I was waiting. After being 31 minutes late, Jay came into the restaurant. He pushed the door open with his shoulder as if he were the owner of the establishment. He was dressed in a gray hoodie, made by a high-end company that had an embroidered emblem on the breast. Even though the price tag had been removed, the plastic loop that secured it to the hem of the garment was still visible. He was carrying a MacBook that had scratches on it under one arm and a venti iced beverage in the other, and the straw was already flat from being chewed on. He gave a nod to the room, found me, and then lifted his chin in response. "Hey sis, getting a place to park is a real nightmare." He went to the chair that was on the opposite side of the table and sat down. He positioned the laptop so that it was in the center of the table between us, as if it were a peace offering. "I have the figures. You're going to be a huge fan of this." The screen brightened as a result of a tap. An Excel file dominated the screen. Jace Harper, Handmade Empire. Columns stretched out wide, pro forma, and formulas that were all jumbled up together. Sales projections of $1 million in the first year, originating from Etsy, Shopify, and bespoke TikTok drops. Breakdown: 50,000 learning units at a cost of $20 apiece. Assumed average viral marketing. Tab for expenses: $280,000 total. $100,000 in inventory, including resin molds and beads. $80,000 for cooperative agreements with influencers. The red flags were 50, 0,